play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm Shane Stacks, your host. Thanks so much for joining us, whether you're listening live on 96.5 FM The Answer here in Little Rock, or if you're listening via the live stream on 96.5fmtheanswer.com. Love to have you. Glad you're here. If you're listening delayed via the podcast version, or if you're listening on kryptonradio.com, which is a week delayed, also welcome. So glad to have you. And remember, we do go out as a podcast a couple of days after the live show. And then we're also on Krypton Radio. KryptonRadio.com is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. So check them out. They got a lot of great programming over there. And the podcast will go out on the blog at shaneplays.com, on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and other fine podcast directories. And the last housekeeping note is always remember that the show notes right now are up at shaneplays.com. That's ShanePlays.com. And the show notes are up there. So the news items we're going to talk about today, and my guest, Michael Witwer, there are links to his book. And also, of course, we're going to be talking, we've got a link to Trollord Games Kickstarter, the Hallowed Oracle. We've got Steven Chenault joining us in studio. Steven, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good. Glad to have you back. It's always fun to have you on.
Glad to be back.
And it's really cool to have you on with today's guest because you guys have a connection. So that's going to be really cool. And speaking of our guest, Mr. Michael Witwer, are you with us?
I am. Greetings, Shane. Greetings, Steve.
Hey,
how
Mike.
are you doing today, guys?
Hey, we're doing good. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm gonna mention throw some love on one of our sponsors that just happens to be Trollord Games. People don't forget that Trollord Games has a Kickstarter going right now. It's called the Hallowed Oracle. Trollord Games has partnered with Shane Moore of Abysswalker fame. It's a series of novels to bring you even more Castles and Crusades, an all-new adventure series complete with new classes, spells, and monsters. So just go to Kickstarter and search for the Hallowed Oracle, or go to the show notes page. And it's linked there as well. And I know you guys you already blew the doors off your goal, Steve, and now you're working on stretch goals.
Yeah, so, we opened it up pretty quick. I think within the first 6 hours it funded, and now we're headed into all kinds of goodies. That's
cool. So and then also evidently Shane Moore is friends with Peter Mayhew of Chewbacca fame, and I think Chewbacca gave it a shout out.
If he hasn't yet, he's working on a video, I think. But I believe they're shooting the next Star Wars, so he's kind of busy.
Yeah, he's a little bit busy. Come on now, priorities, Mayhew.
Right.
Good grief. Hey, okay, before we do the news segment, I have in addition to radio, one of my favorite things to do is tell bad jokes. Okay, so Steve or Michael, which one of you wants the bad joke? Because I can't let both of you do it because I can't be responsible for the mental damages.
Gary made fun of me for years for not getting jokes or puns, so I'm gonna pass this to you.
Are you up for this, Michael? All right.
Yeah, sure. You let it fly, man.
Okay. All right. I'm not responsible for any psychiatrist that you have to go to after this. Okay. I want to get that on there. Okay, Michael. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Wizard.
Wizard who?
Wizard out of second level spells. Think about it. Think about it.
You just say bad joke, right? I think you nailed it on the front end.
I'm one of those people that thinks the worse the joke is, kind of the better, unless it's just offensive.
It has a quality to it.
I think I've made Zach, our producer, go catatonic in there. Zach, are you okay? Okay, that's what's called grognard humor, Zach. We're referring to old D&D where he cast the spell knock twice, so he's out of second level spells. Anyway, okay. All right, and you know what we did? By casting knock, we opened up the news segment. See what I did there?
Yeah, you did.
Hey, let's listen. Yeah, let's listen into that hardworking news team, Zach. Are they working today? Are they? Oh, we're trying to. Evidently, the secret switch for the microphone is hidden on us. He's working on it. Come on, Zach. You can do it. I believe in you.
We can always do it.
Yeah. We'll just make type right. There it is. Wow. Those guys work hard. And remember, for every $1 of support.
Typing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think it's not really a newsroom without typing.
That's true.
Yeah. You need a fedora and you need to go Dateline Little Rock. So anyway, remember, for every $1 of Patreon support that we get, the news team gets a penny an hour raise. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
All right, we're going to plow through. I always say this, but I mean it today. We're going to plow through the news segment so that we can get to Michael's book, his Gary Gygax biography, Empire of the Imagination, which, if I understand right, Steve, you were the first interview. Is that right, Michael? Were you the first person or was Steve the first person you interviewed?
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
Steve is the first person I spoke to, first interview that I did on this.
And that was back at Lake Geneva Con, wasn't it?
We met there, and I think, I don't remember exactly how we ended up speaking for the first time, but I think we met there, and then you agreed to talk to me or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was a phone interview. Was the first thing we actually did, the formal interview part. But yeah, you were number one, man. You were ground zero for this book.
I do remember that phone call now because something was wrong with the phone, as I recall.
Well, and something wrong with the interviewer, too.
Yeah. So let's be honest. Okay, now we know the book is great and it's a success. Okay, but at the point, be honest, Steve, were you like, who is this lunatic and what is he trying to do?
Well, actually, because I come from a scholastic background, when he pitched the idea of what he was doing, because it was originally your master's thesis, wasn't it?
Exactly right. Exactly.
Right. When he pitched it that way, I thought, okay, this is going to be a scholarly treatment of this material that I've seen so many people write about that get really upset one way or the other. And really what it needs is somebody with, which Mike gave it, someone with, kind of take a step back and look at, how did this unfold the way that it actually
It's scholarly under the hood, but it's presented in an extremely readable manner.
Very much
so. And we know it's scholarly because it's got footnotes and a bibliography. So we're good.
And when he sent the manuscript to me like a year later, I thought, he actually did it. This is cool.
Wow. What do you know? What the heck? All right. And one thing I forgot to mention, folks, this is live talk radio. So if you're listening live, feel free to call in at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. Okay, we'll hit these news items real quick, and then we will. And I made sure to throw in some D&D related news items here. So, but the first couple are not. Now, of course, unless you're living on a rock, you know that San Diego Comic-Con was last weekend. And it was the last weekend? Man, it's a blur. Yeah. And
that sounds about right. Yeah,
I guess I was under a rock. So, but anyway, a plethora. I just wanted to use the word plethora. A veritable smorgasbord of news items came out of San Diego Comic-Con, and in the mix, amid all that, was some Star Trek news. So we've been people have either been dreading or eagerly anticipating this new Star Trek TV series that's evidently coming January 2017 on CBS All Access. They're going to premiere it on CBS, and then after that, you have to subscribe to their online thing to watch it.
Right. It's called Discovery, right?
Yeah, it's called Discovery. So the initials are STD, so I guess they want it to go viral. Dun-dun-dun. That's the joke. That's the joke, right? So
that should have been the joke.
Yeah. Mike's right. You would have done better to leave.
Everybody's a critic. I tell you, everybody's a critic. All right, so I got a couple of news items on it, and okay, I'm a Star Trek nerd. Okay, I mean, I love Star Wars, I love Star Trek, I love this, I love that, and my inner fan has come out on this. I think it's fine. There's a couple of interesting things. One, they've said it's going to be in the Prime universe, not the JJ universe. Okay. Which, by the way, I went and saw Beyond, and Beyond was pretty good.
I haven't seen it yet.
It was pretty good.
I haven't either.
I liked it. It was, ironically, for being a big action movie, it had more of the original series Trek feel
to it.
Yeah, it has that multicolored Starfleet optimism thing going on.
Yeah, because the others have kind of missed that a little bit.
A little bit. A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and it was good. But anyway, and that's called the Kelvin universe, because evidently the alternate timeline branched when Nero showed up in the first Star Trek movie in 2009 and blew up the USS Kelvin. Okay, so there's your geek trivia of the day. Yeah. So, but this show is going to be in the Prime universe, the main universe. And I'll say it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you like or hate JJ Trek, it's still a brilliant move that he rebooted it in such a way that the original universe is still there because he said it's an alternate timeline.
Right.
That's genius. Okay.
That is good. No,
you get to have
good.
your cake and eat it too. Right. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's going to be in the Prime universe. It starts in 2017, January 2017. They haven't started filming yet, but somehow it's coming out in January. You tell me. I don't know.
5 months? Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
They're claiming. Yeah, and it's going to be episodic. Not each episode will not be standalone. It's going to be serialized. So each, like the whole season is like a novel, and each episode is a chapter. Okay, so that's what we know about it. We don't know the crew. We don't know whatever, but we do know
that works if you've got a really good show.
Yeah, they're trying to, they're doing that on purpose,
right?
So that you'll stay subscribed to. Well, I've got to see what happens next. I've got to see what happens. Right? Okay. So
and Deep Space Nine was kind of that way. I mean, Deep Space Nine basically had an overarching theme: the battle with the Cardassians, and then the Founders, whatever they were called.
Right.
So they've kind of gone this route before, and it can work.
I think it can work if the like Steve said, if the storytelling is good, I think it can work. Now, the other thing that's come out. And I, as a fan, I'm putting my fanboy hat on this. They released some footage of what the new ship looks like, and it looks, in my opinion,
I haven't seen it.
They put it. The links are on ShanePlays.com. Well, when we hit a break, I'll let you watch it. I'll pull it up, Steve, on the computer. But yeah, look, there's a link.
It's not the Enterprise, right?
No. It's the ship is called the Discovery.
Okay,
and the new ship looks terrible. It in my opinion, and there's a lot of people who are like, what are they smoking?
Really?
It looks like, and I'm going to get geeky again here, it looks like a Constellation class, which was the original Enterprise, and a Klingon D7 loved each other very much. That's what it looks like. It just looks weird.
They just carried that theme on.
That's right. The Romeo and Juliet.
Right. Yeah.
Starship.
When you love when two starships love each other very much. So, and some people have pointed out, before you got Star Trek the Motion Picture, they were looking at doing a Star Trek Phase 2 series and another motion picture. And Ralph McQuarrie, who did some of the concept art for Star Wars, really well known for that, also did some concept art for Star Trek. And the ship kind of looks like that. So anyway.
I did see that side by side. And I will say that I think because Ralph McQuarrie has become kind of bigger than some of his parts, he's now appreciated more than he used to be in a lot of ways.
Right.
And part of that is, of course, the results of Star Wars using him for Rebels, right? The Rebels concept art and the stylings of that show are directed based, or I should say based on McQuarrie's original concept art for Star Wars. So that might be part of it's kind of hip to be into him and to go back to his original concepts for these starships.
Well, it's possible.
The Star Trek universe might be where they're going.
Well, we'll see. My first glance, or my knee-jerk reaction was, that looks hideous. It looks, remember the Doomsday Machine, that famous episode where it looked like a big cornucopia in space, right?
Yeah, like a giant worm thing.
Yeah, it's like it had a hemorrhoid. That's what this thing looks like.
Now I've got to see the ship. At a Comic-Con, I watched the Wonder Woman trailer, Justice League, and the Walking Dead trailers. Apparently, I should have looked at Star Trek. I'm gonna kill the sound on this computer, and I'm gonna let you watch it. You can see it now while we're going on. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not happy with it. There's some fans that like it. I don't like it. I don't know. What do you think, Michael? Do you like it?
You mean just the concept art?
The actual new ship. Have you seen the new ship?
Yeah, no. So I basically was looking at something that was a side by side of the McQuarrie art versus the new concept, and I don't know. I mean, let's be honest. The Star Trek ships are all really pretty out of context. They're pretty odd because they've never been. They're not aerodynamic, right? They never looked like starships. That was something that was kind of neat about them. The Enterprise and pretty much everything else in that universe was never aerodynamic. So there's a part of me that doesn't have a lot of expectation, frankly, about what a Star Trek vessel looks like. I'll be honest, I haven't even made any judgment on it. I looked at it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that.
Yeah, my inner geek came out, and I went, what are they smoking? But anyway.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
First part looks really cool, the disc and everything coming out, but then when you see the underbelly, it does kind of look like
it looks like a Klingon D7, and a Constellation loved each other. And somebody else said that the saucer section looks like a roulette wheel. So they're like, oh, it's actually the first traveling Starfleet casino.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, we got to move on. I'm gonna shoot this rabbit hole in the head and move us on so that we could talk about other stuff. I got to throw this in. for console gamers out there, it looks like we're finally getting some details on what the Nintendo NX is going to be. And they've been kind of very vague on what it may be. They're like, oh, it's a console, but it's portable. Da, da, da. It looks like that it's going to be a portable console that you carry with you, but it has detachable controllers, like little Wii controllers that detach off of it. And at that point, you can connect it to your TV. So then it's like a console, or you could just carry it with you. So it's both.
Take it to the hotel. And game.
Evidently it's both. And it runs cartridges. It's not going to run discs. It's going to run cartridges. So
surely it's got a download option.
Yeah. I'm sure it has that. Sure. So that's all we know. We've got some designs, some leaked patent. They always show the black and white sketches or whatever. I thought that the Wii was amazing. I thought they really, really knocked down a wall with the Wii on how you can play games. The Wii U did not do anything, so I hope that the NX does something for them.
It's like the Xbox One. I guess it's not supported enough. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. PlayStation seems to be back on top right now, but Xbox One still has some support. But the Wii U just
done.
By every estimation was pretty much a dud.
Yeah.
So, are you a console gamer at all, Michael?
I have an Xbox, but it is a neglected Xbox.
Yeah.
I grew up with, of course, I grew up with the original NES and then the Atari 2600 before that, Commodore 64. So I like it all. I will tell you that computer games were really kind of my go-to throughout my younger life.
Same with
which
me.
is, of course, one reason why I was so into role-playing and computer role-playing games is because that's where most of the great computer role-playing games were made. They were made for the computer gaming world. So that was, but I'm into all of it is the answer to your question.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm much more of a PC gamer than anything else, but I will do some console. All right. And finally, we have some news. We have a trifecta of news items from Ian World, a hat trick, if you will.
Wow.
From Ian World. So I'm trying to work all these great words into. What did I say earlier? Not a plethora. Yeah. Well, now we have a trifecta of news items from Ian World. And I threw these in specifically, one, because I think they're interesting, but two, we're talking D&D and Gary Gygax today. One, Roll20 is now also an officially licensed D&D platform. So up to this point, if you wanted to officially play licensed D&D stuff on virtual tabletops, you had to use Fantasy Grounds. And I've actually had Fantasy Grounds on the show several months ago, and it was a really, really interesting discussion. Yeah, I liked them all. In fact, Castles Crusades is on Fantasy Grounds. Yeah. And we've been talking, Steve, about making sure that there's more Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, Castles Crusades going on out there. Expanding that, yeah. So, but now Roll20 is doing it as well, and I guess their first officially licensed product is going to be the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is the module that comes with the starter set, and is actually quite good. I ran a group through Lost Mine of Phandelver, and it's actually pretty good. So, and what that means is, instead of having to bake your own, you buy this pre-done module, and it's got all the Roll20 bells and whistles and all the text already built in. So you just fire it up and run it.
That's good.
Yeah. So, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, these virtual tabletops are big stuff.
And since 5th edition decided to adopt an attribute check system,
kind of like another,
kind of like a game I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So, yeah. What do you know? It's almost like they're laying siege to it.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway,
well, you're on a roll today.
I am. Wow. It must be this energy drink. All right. The next news item, and this just shows you the cultural spread of D&D right now. It's out of control. A lot of people like to watch the Acquisitions Incorporated D&D games at PAX. PAX. It's and Chris Perkins, who's also been on the show a couple times, real fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he runs the Acquisitions Incorporated games. They're now making that so like how they have these Fathom events and you can go see live events in theaters. Mm-hmm. Now you can go to the theater. The next one, you can go to the theater and watch Chris Perkins and Acquisitions Incorporated play D&D.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's great because it shows. I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats, and the more that this goes up, the more the RPG hobby and And there's this Stranger Things show on Netflix right now, which evidently
first episode last night.
Yeah, which evidently is in some ways a love letter to D&D. So it's just huge. I hope it's not a bubble. I hope it's It's got to sink somewhat at some point, but I mean, it's really growing right now.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You can't tell.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, to your point, we're at a very interesting time. I've got a feeling what your third news item is going to be, so I'm going to hold that particular comment, but I am going to mention that. I mean, let's keep in mind there is a D&D movie in production right now,
right?
For Warner Brothers. I'm not sure if it's actually in production per se, but it was obviously acquired. It's in development.
It's underway. Yeah, it's already got a couple of actors cast. I think they have a script.
They can't see me shaking my head, can they? This is radio. So.
No, they can't. They can hear it rattle, but they can't see it. All right, and
so point being is that it would just take something like that to really hit.
Yeah.
For everything to for I think the shoes to really drop. I think we are at kind of a tipping point where people are really understanding how important this entire movement is, not just D&D, but everything that's come since then.
And that speaks to why your book is important, which we will definitely, I mean, do you like that? It's a segue before the segue.
Good.
Yeah, I'm teasing. That's a tease.
You got plethoras of segues.
I'm foreshadowing what's to come. And the last news item, I wish we could spend more time on this, but we can't. I want to get to a break, and then when we get back, I want to talk about Michael's book. A Transformers producer has entered into a deal, and this should be interesting to you too, Steve, because you've had dealings with Gary, including you publish some of his stuff. Enters a deal with the Gygax estate to oversee the Gygax catalog.
Yes.
Did you see this?
I did see that.
Can either of you guys shed a light on what this may mean? I don't know what is in his catalog that
well, I'm assuming I had an interesting conversation with Gary just before he passed. He passed away in March, of course, and we did a Winter Dark in January. And I was up there, and he sat down with me at the little booth thing. We were working on Kings of England and Kings of France. He was going through Peter had done all the concept cards for it. So I was giving him the cards, and he was going through them and making corrections and adjustments to this board game that he'd wanted to do. And he began to catalog this list of stuff. And about halfway through the conversation, I began to write it down because he had so much stuff he wanted to do. I mean, I was just floored at how much.
Now, was this because he loved to do wargaming too?
He had two video game ideas that he wanted to resurrect. He had board games, and there's Legendary Adventures. There was just all kinds of stuff that he wanted to do. So I suspect that, of course, Gail Gygax. I can't remember the name of her company. I think it's Gygax Memorial. But anyway, she has all of that material. So I'm assuming the catalog has all the Gord stuff, all the stuff that we published, all of it. It's got to be
Now, the stuff that Troll Lords published, who has the rights to that right now?
The art belongs to Troll Lord Games, but all of the text belongs to Gygax.
All right. Yeah. What's your take on this, Michael?
Yeah, no, I actually think it's amazing. I think it's remarkable news for a lot of reasons. It makes me very excited. Having just learned about it, actually, I hadn't heard about it until Shane, you sent me that piece.
Yeah.
And so Tom DeSanto is a name known to me, actually. He's kind of a friend of a friend, I guess you could say.
Right.
I don't know him personally, but so when I found out he was the one that acquired it and that he was a big D&D geek, I was like, wow, there's something I didn't know. And but the bigger part here is that I really was kind of amazed by it because I thought, well, gosh, what IP that Gary still owns is particularly appealing, and the answer is there is a lot of stuff. I mean, one thing that I talk about in the book, and we'll get to that, is just that Gary was just this fountain of ideas and stuff. The guy was just cranking out for 40 years, was cranking out an unbelievable amount of stuff. So the more I started to think about it, while a lot of his best known IP, of course, is under the TSR banner, there's no question about that. But things like Gord that Steve just mentioned, Gord is a character I believe that Gary still owns. It exists in the Greyhawk universe. But he wrote 7 Gord books, and only, I believe, 5 of them were published under New Infinities, which was Gary's company, Gary and Gail's company.
So those novels he wrote were about Gord?
Yes. We actually...
They were about Gord. They were licensed.
We were republishing the first one. We had republished the first one just before he died. We were going to republish all of them.
Okay.
And he was actually working on another one.
All right. Well, it's cool news, and I want to end that news item with this quote, which I think that kind of speaks to Gary's impact. I think Gary is one of those people. As time goes on, he's getting more and more of his due. And here's a note. Of course, it was a producer. Was it Tom DeSanto or DeSanto? I know that. Yeah. So he said, and here's the quote he gave. He said DeSanto is quoted as saying that Gary Gygax is one of those names that belongs alongside George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry as storytellers whose influence reached around the globe and through generations. Oh, yeah. So I think that's That's cool. And it also speaks to how. Yeah, go ahead.
Amen.
Yeah, and it also speaks to how much influence D&D and everything is having now.
You could even make an argument, I think, that Gary's impact is greater than that, because most of these greater than Roddenberry's, or maybe not Lucas, but almost all of these video games,
come back to
their origins lie in his basement on that sand table.
Absolutely. If you're playing World of Warcraft, anyway, okay, got to take us to a break, guys. Thanks for your great comments during the news segment. Zach, take us to a break. And when we come back, we will be talking about Michael's book. It's a Gary Gygax biography, The Empire of the Imagination. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now. Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. You could call us at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays if you happen to be listening live. If you're listening by the podcast, that's okay too. I still love you. We're joined by Steve Chenault from Troll Games. They publish, mainly known for Castles and Crusades, but also Amazing Adventures.
Victorious is coming out. We got fiction books coming out. We got a whole lot of.
And you also sell our guest book.
Yes, we do.
Empire of the Imagination. We're joined by Michael Witwer, the author of Empire of the Imagination, which is Gary Gygax biography. And Steve, I think you said you're down to 5 copies of this, right?
Mike, can you bring me some to Gen Con? That's like in 2 days.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Bring me a box.
Steve.
When Shane shouted at me the other day, I thought, I better check the inventory on that book. And I'm about sold out, and I got Gen Con in 48 hours or something?
Yeah.
It is around the corner. I can't wait to see you there, Steve. This is going to be fun. I'll definitely get you a box. Don't worry about that.
Bring me a box. Yeah, we're both 1321. Good deal.
And then Michael's also going to be in a panel at Gen Con with John Peterson, who wrote Playing at the World, which I think that that Empire of the Imagination and Playing at the World are fantastic companion books. They really
absolutely,
yeah.
John's book really is the definitive history of the role playing game movement. Let's just put it that way. Whereas,
and it's incredibly scholarly. Speaking of scholarly, it's like
incredible.
Yeah, incredibly. Well, I'm going to have John on in the future. I hate to divert it off John here, but we've got about 20 minutes left, and that'll go a lot quicker than you think. So let's just say John Peterson's book is great. Playing at the World. I'm going to have him on in the future. I've already been talking with him. But the book we're talking about here with Michael Witwer, it's called Empire of the Imagination, and it's a biography of Gary Gygax and the birth of Dungeons and Dragons. And it started as a master's thesis and became a book. So my first question for you, Michael, is why did you write a master's thesis on Gary Gygax and Dungeons and Dragons, and how did it end up becoming a book?
That's a great question. It's got a two-part answer. So it was simple as this. I grew up playing role-playing games, so I loved it. I understood it. It was my favorite pastime. I've been playing D&D specifically since I was 5 years old, when my brother bought these late 70s AD&D books from a neighborhood kid. And so we were way too young to be playing truly, but my brother's 3 years older, so he was our DM, and he was experimenting on me at 5 and my friend at 6.
Now, is this your brother Sam that you mentioned in the author's notes actually introduced you to the game?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, my only brother. So, yes, Sam Witwer, he's an actor, and actually did the audiobook also for Empire of Imagination.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Check that out, folks.
So Sam was the one that really brought us to it. So I played my whole life, and I was halfway through this master's program, which was a very broad liberal studies master's. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, really, and I was working on a topic that was really going nowhere for the final project, this master's thesis that was required to finish the program. Now. And I had tripped on an article about Gary that had been written after he had passed away. Now, so just to give you context, we're talking about 2012 at this point. So Gary had been passed away for a few years, but I found an article that was written after he died. I don't remember how I tripped on it, but it was just about his life, and it was just something very high level. But what I thought was interesting is I had never really thought about this guy. I had never thought twice about the guy that was on the front of all these books that I grew up with. I knew he was this kind of shadowy figure up the road in Lake Geneva. I'm from Chicago, so that was only 70, 80 miles north. And I knew he had been, of course, he had founded this whole movement. He had been connected with all this D&D stuff, and I never really knew what happened. And it sounded like, just based on this high level article, that A, he'd obviously done some very important things, but B, it sounded like he had led a very interesting life. Just his actual day-to-day life just sounded very interesting. So I actually went to look for a biography about him and couldn't find one. And I thought, wow, how can somebody as important as Gary Gygax not have a biography?
So hold on, yours is the only biography that's out there?
That's correct.
That blows me away.
About Gary Gygax.
That does surprise me. Yeah.
And to people like us, again, it's a no-brainer, because you sit and think, oh my gosh, if you grew up playing role-playing games, you look around the world today and say, oh, there's a concept that originated at the tabletop. There's a concept that came directly from D&D. There's a concept that came from whatever. And so you see all this stuff, and we take it for granted, but you think there's a whole world out here that doesn't really realize a lot of these huge multi-billion-dollar phenomena came from this little geeky hobby that started in 1974 in Lake Geneva. And so that's when things clicked with me, and I said, oh my gosh, how can there not be a really in-depth piece about this particular person? And so that's when I got really excited and thought, you know what, I'm going to switch my master's topic to a biographical assignment about Gary Gygax. And what occurred to me was that, unlike trying to write a biography about, take your pick of Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or whoever, access is a big deal, right? Can you talk to people that really knew them? Can you get a hold of actual documents that will tell you something? And in those cases, that would have been very hard. But for someone like Gary Gygax, having been to a lot of conventions, I knew that you could talk to the all-stars of role-playing game history right there at these conventions. These are people that are not inaccessible. People like Steve Chenault sitting in the room there with you. People like Tim Kask. People like Frank Menser. These are people you see. And so I thought, oh my goodness, I might be able to actually speak to the people that knew Gary really well and get these one-of-a-kind accounts and figure out where to go from there. I also knew that Gary had written a ton of stuff. So there was a huge, there was a plethora, you might say.
A plethora, a veritable cornucopia.
Stuff. Yeah, a cornucopia of archival stuff that I could use. And so that's when I jumped off and decided to really go, both feet in on this project, because I knew I could do it as a meaningful master's thesis, where I could get the kind of depth I needed to actually put a project out there that hadn't been done before. So that was the first part. Is when we got started, it was approved through the University of Chicago. I finished the project up as the master's piece, and then once I was done with it, I already had 50,000 words in the can. So I was kind of like, well, gosh, there's no book about this guy, so why don't I start looking for an agent and seeing if I can make this thing something bigger? I never intended it to be a book. It just kind of happened very organically. And once I got my agent, then I, really started thinking, wow, this could really happen. And it did. A few months later, Bloomsbury bought the book.
So, I was going to ask, how hard do you feel it was? Do you feel like it was like, wow, this was easier than I thought to actually get published? I mean, you didn't self-publish. You had it published through, like the traditional route. So how hard, do you feel that went easier than you were expecting, or was it kind of a struggle?
You know what? If I had any sense of how hard it is to get a book commercially published, I probably would have never even started. It was my own ignorance of the whole process that kept me motivated.
Thank goodness for ignorance.
Yeah, right. Well, no, like so many things, you stumble on this stuff and you figure out, I'm this far into it now, right? I've passed the point of no return. I have to keep going. With regard to the actual commercial publishing process, the thing that worked in my favor was I had an idea here that I was very passionate about, first of all, and something that I think I could at least explain to somebody that said, wow, you like that World of Warcraft? That's pretty cool, right? Well, did you know that is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game that came from Dungeons & Dragons? And you could point to 15 other huge pop culture phenomena that have the same profile. And all of a sudden, you could make a case even to a more general audience that, wow, this guy by the transitive property, this guy Gary Gygax, is pretty darn important if he laid the foundations for all of this stuff that became really some of the biggest stuff today. So that was something that was very appealing, I think. But the other part of it was just that a lot of the commercial publishing process has to do with kind of spinning a proposal and kind of packaging. Well, in this case, really packaging a proposal about why the book is going to work and why it makes sense. And I happen to be a proposal writer. That's what I do professionally.
Well, that just happened. Well, there you go.
So the rest is history. No, so it just so happens that I was pretty good at some of the ancillary parts about getting it from point A to point Z. So I kept joking with my agent, I don't know if I can write a book, worth a damn, but I can definitely write a proposal. So there you go.
Well, okay. So is, and how, obviously I'm not trying to get into how much money have you made or the actual units that have sold, but has it sold fairly? Has it been well received? Not just, hey, we love to read your book, but are people buying it?
Absolutely. No, I know for a fact that we're beyond expectations at this point at Bloomsbury. So I'm thrilled about that. Again, you're also keeping in mind that I had zero expectations for, again, I never even meant to write the book in the first place. So for me, you come out there, you get something out there that you feel passionate about and you sink a ton of time into. 3 years of work into, and all of a sudden the fact that you're making money on it, the fact that people are talking about it and that, there's something very gratifying about the whole thing. And again, I had no expectations. Originally, the book was bought as a paperback by one of the editors at Bloomsbury that happened to be a gamer that really understood why this was a very important person. And then all of a sudden, they started talking about it internally and saying, "Gosh, this is really important. Let's make it a hardcover. Let's do really cool things with it." They gave me a lot of running room on the cover, on the end paper maps, all these cool things that I knew as a gamer I really wanted to see in the book. This is a book written for gamers by a gamer. And that was what was most important to me. You talked about the style. That also speaks to that same element, which is I wanted this book to really, really move people that do and love what I love, role-playing games.
So, and it's interesting that, like you said, that it's almost by accident and that you ended up writing it. And also, a lot of people probably don't realize that, you're also like a theater and movie actor. Is that not correct from what I've seen in your biography?
That's exactly right. I started my career actually in musical theater and stage theater. I've done a little bit of film work. That's more my brother's forte than mine, certainly. But I started my career doing theater stuff. I went to Northwestern and I graduated with musical theater, music, And that's what I wanted to do. And frankly, what happened is I fell into product marketing and proposal writing a couple of years later when I figured out that theater was not really a lifestyle or a living that was going to be very easy to kind of make it all work. So I fell into kind of some writing basically, and the rest was history there. And now I'm very happy I did. I couldn't imagine it another way.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff, life's what happens when you're making other plans a lot of times. So I'm glad it led to this book. Now, you're talking about the style of the book. I think I mentioned it earlier. I really recommend. I mean, the book itself is interesting anyway. The subject matter, it's important, especially right now with the explosion of the Renaissance, if you will, in role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, people are literally watching thousands of hours of other people play this game on YouTube. Right. And I mean, people are fascinated with it. Yeah. So they're going to go to the theaters now. But what's good about this book, not only do you learn a lot about Gary and his life, and like there's all these chapters, you're like, why are we getting this chapter of Gary's life? And then there's a little nugget in it, and you go, oh, that's why, because there's a little spark in here that's all building up to him doing Dungeons and Dragons. And it's written, there's two things that I like about the style. One, you write it almost if you're reading fiction, but it's not. It's footnoted. Right. It's, you're just saying this, it's almost like a dramatization, but it's well documented. You're like, here's why I wrote this scene this way. You can read the footnotes. And you look like you want to say something, Steve?
Well, it's funny because when Mike mentioned that was the way he was doing it, my reading background, I've done, my master's degree was in history, and I was working on my PhD when I started TLG, so I'm very scholastically oriented in that direction in the stuff that I read. So when he told me the biography was going to kind of take that tone, I was eyebrows up. What?
Yeah. But, you had to roll a wisdom save to, if you wanted to keep going with the discussion.
But then when he fired the manuscript over to me via email, and I got a chance, I guess it was the rough draft probably that you sent me. I thought, well, this is really cool. This is exceptional. Well. Yeah. So it was all of my doubts were washed away immediately.
And it opens.
Not that I doubted you, Mike.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Never.
Take me with you to fame, Michael.
Man, you gave me your time. I mean, I can never thank you enough for that. Truly,
it was a blast.
It opens with a very pivotal scene with Gary years after he's basically invented D&D with Dave Arneson, and it sets that, and then it goes back and starts telling from a younger Gary up. And another thing I like about this book, I always have many things going on at the same time. Right? I'll read a little bit of this, I'll read a little bit of that. I have like 3 books going at the same time. This is how I've always been. The chapters in here you can read 2 or 3 chapters easily without, I've got to dedicate the next hour of my life. Some people just want to sit down and plow through it, but I'm attention deficit when it comes to reading. I've got multiple books going on at the same time. So I really like that about it. And it's also, go ahead.
Oh, I know it drives me nuts when I get my train ride home and I can't finish something, right? You get a third through a chapter, and so I did want brief readable chapters that were action oriented, that really followed that narrative and that give you that information, right? Because the whole trick with narrative nonfiction, right, is that you can grip onto somebody or something, an active narrative that you're following. In this case, it's Gary, kind of like being on Gary's shoulder. You're going through these various things, but what you're doing is you're learning all the information, the hard details and facts and figures in the background, right? So that to me is the most interesting way to take in this information, and that's why we did it the way we did. I mean, again, I'd recently read Devil in the White City by Eric Larson, who does it masterfully. I had also read some stuff by Ben Mesrick, who of course wrote The Accidental Billionaires, which turned into the movie The Social Network. And he does kind of a similar style. And I was so intrigued by this idea that you could read history, something that's nonfiction, but be able to read it in a way that, as you already suggested, reads like fiction. That really helped me. Well, I'll give you an example. There's this element of showing and not telling.
Right.
And so, there's one really funny, great scene in there where, basically Elise has her first date. It's this blind date.
Help me do this, Michael. Help me. You're going to help me set up a tease. In the art of radio, we're going to tease people for that story after the break because I got to get another break in. So Elise is having a first date. This is Gary's daughter, and I know the anecdote you're going to share, and it's great. So we'll have that when we come back. on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. First, I'm going to throw some quick love at a sponsor, Game Goblins. And Game Goblins carries Castles Crusades. Do they carry Amazing Adventures too? Yeah, so I think your mic's off there. There it is. Yeah, your mic was off. Yeah, they do carry Amazing Adventures. So Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. For all your gaming needs, I hardly recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. They are conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, staffed by friendly employees. Call Game Goblins, 501-224-GAME, or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now. Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, we're back. Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love, joined by Steve Chenault from Trollord Games and our guest, Michael Witwer, author of the Gygax, I don't know why I keep messing that, Gygax, the Gary Gygax biography, Empire of the Imagination. Michael is going to regale us with an anecdote from the book, which is actually really good. We've got about 5 minutes left, not quite. So what I want to do is I'm going to mention a couple of things that is like, hey, you can find this if you read this book. This is the kind of stuff you'll get. And then I want Michael to share that story. But before we get it, Michael, how can people get a copy of this book if for some strange reason they don't want to get it from Trollord Games?
Well, that was the first thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
Firstly, go to Trollord Games. Go to their website. Go see them at Gen Con.
There you go.
Trollord Games, folks.
We have the book.
They're the single supplier. No, I'm joking.
We will ship it to you, or you can pick it up at the con.
All right. And if you don't want to get it from Trolloid, then you just have to let your fingers do the searching. No, I'm joking. Go ahead, Michael. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, and truly, so the book is released nationally, so you can get it at any of the major brick and mortar or Barnes and Noble bookstores out there, as well, of course, as on Amazon and all the other usual places that you can find books. But again, I want to give a special plug to Trolloid Games because they were the first supporter of the book. They were my first interview in the form of Steve Chenault. So you can find the book anywhere in audiobook, in paperback, and in hardcover.
And if you love role-playing
thank you for the plug, sir.
Yeah,
it's a really, really good book.
It's a great book. And if you love role-playing game companies, support Trollord first. It's just like supporting your local game store. Do that. Anyway, real quick, here's the kind of stuff you can find in the book. Did you know that Gary was spending so much time gaming, his wife actually became jealous and thought there was another woman involved and stormed one of the gaming sessions and was absolutely mystified when she saw that they were just playing games. Another time, government agents actually infiltrated his gaming groups because they were hearing about this wargaming going on. And then the guy came clean and said, "Hey, can I join your group?" And then he was convinced the first Gen Con was going to be a failure. And honestly, it's ironic, as much as D&D is based on Tolkien, he wasn't a big fan of Tolkien's writing. So that's the kind of stuff you can find in this book and much, much more. Michael, over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. No, Gary's a very unexpected story, and that's what really drew me to it, is that there's three prongs of the story that's so amazing. One is, honestly, two of them are very expected, let's be honest. One is the story of TSR. A lot of people at least have heard rumors, kind of know a lot of the background of that. TSR was this horrifically dysfunctional company that was run by people that started for the love of the game. And so what's so cool about the story, I guess you could say cool is the wrong word, but it's this classic story of like Apple or Facebook or any of these other big things that were started for the love of something, and they turn into something very different when the money starts rolling in.
Right. Yeah.
So there's so much interest just in the TSR story by itself. Another prong of the story, of course, is the psychological controversies, the devil worship controversies around the game. I mean,
the classic 60 minutes.
I do remember those well.
Yeah, just
we used to get pamphlets in the mail when we were kids.
Okay, so here's the deal. We got about a minute left. Did you want to share that Elise story real quick?
Absolutely. Well, we promised it. So the gist with this book is it's all about showing, not telling. I could tell you facts and figures till I'm blue in the face of Gary Gygax and say, oh, well, he was a high school dropout. He did this, he did that. And that stuff is surely in there. You'll find every bit of it. But I thought it was way more interesting to really let the reader experience these particular things with Gary, to really kind of really experience his victories with him and agonize over his defeats with him while he's going through them. And so one example would be, I could say in the book, Gary was a strict father, but he also was a he would tease his kids and he had a lot of fun with them, and he could go either way. And so one story we tell about in the book that kind of a little bit comes out of nowhere is this thing where Elise is having her first date. It's a blind date. The guy's coming, and Elise and Gary are arguing in the kitchen. Absolutely true story about the fact that she's due in by I think it's 9:30. No, I'm sorry, it's 9:30, 10. I don't remember what time, but. Call it 9:30. And so Gary said, no, absolutely, 9:30 is it. That's as late as you can stay out. I'm sorry. Elise says, no, it's not fair, Dad. Everyone else gets to stay late. The guy comes to the house. Elise has never met him because it's a blind date, and he's a dog. He's greasy, and he's gangly,
10
and
seconds.
He's gross. And so Gary meets him and says, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And the guy introduced himself as the Doc of Love, a la Kiss. And so he's just a creep. And so Elise looks at this guy, looks at her dad, and says, "Oh, Dad, oh boy, I guess I have to be in by 9:30, right?" And Gary looks at her and says, "Oh no, Elise, you can stay out as late as you want."
And that's a great story to wrap on. We actually gave you about 15 extra seconds, Michael. Thanks for being on the show today.
That's fantastic.
Hey, look, the Dungeons and Dragons ride. Wow, neat.
Give me a break.
I don't like this.
Whoa! What's happening?
Whoa!
Where are we? Look out! Fear not, stranger. Barbarian, magician, thief, cavalier, and acrobat. avenger, the force of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.